Hey, good morning, everybody. YouTube, how you doing? We had hoped to restart our morning updates a little more upbeat, but the evils of socialism won't allow it. How's everybody doing? So that's the first thing I saw when I started trying to track down anything to talk about or review this morning. The kid held in socialist healthcare system over there in the UK finally succumbed to lack of care and lack of trying and lack of human decency, it looks like. Um, so that's on the top of the docket today. How's everybody doing? See if we can get back in the swing of things. I might be out a little bit of practice, so this might be a little rough. You never know. But I haven't actually found an article. It's just that everybody just got taglines up right now. But everybody knows the story pretty much at this point. Very ironic that the same day the head honchos, the Royals, get their kid to born into the world, no problems, which we'll talk about also a little bit. This kid's denied any health care whatsoever. Well, who's not going to pass away? You know what I'm saying? I guess a soft genocide isn't different than any other thing, right? Hey, Stan, what's going on? How you doing? You hope Italy keeps its promise and charges the UK with killing one of its citizens. I have not heard that. That'll definitely cause more rift in the EU. Was the kid a dual citizen or something like that? Because they lived in Liverpool. But it'll be interesting. But as you had on the same week, we did have the case of the royal tyrant coming into the world. And somehow they're trying to justify that this costs less than the average U.S. birth. This is a science web page. So I'm trying to piece together that this costs less than the average U.S. birth. I would like to see the statistics that went behind that, trying to justify that that that's actually true, because I don't believe it for a second. The cost of the doctor's hour alone in the UK is probably more than because the Royals aren't paying for the average doctor off the street to give birth. Oh, Italy granted citizenship. Is that what happened, Stan? I see. Well, Stan, yeah, you do have the distinction of being a part of the Commonwealth, as they say, I guess. Still got the Queen on the back of your money, so it says, I guess that says it all, right? Unfortunate situation. Yeah, I'll try not to remind you too hard, Stan, but I have a hard time letting go. But that's the tyrannical news of the day, I guess. They'll be to see how buried that socialized healthcare story gets moving through the weekend. I don't know if that'll get um, more attention or not, seeing how it's Saturday morning and people want to talk about other things. But that being said, I did have, and again, I haven't seen a full article on the passing away as it just happened here in the last little bit, but I'm sure there'll be full write-ups coming from some of your more determined writers. It'll probably get a blurb on Fox News, but that's probably about it. But moving on, I find this is a good article. It looked like in Zero Hedge I pulled up the end of our empire approaches, which many of us have been speaking of for quite some time, comparing the overreach and spread of the empire compared to the Romans, the money, monetary, and refugee situation all seem to have a tie-in similar to what happened in Rome, and that we're just following in the footsteps. It could be years down the road, and we will just one day wake up and it won't exist anymore without us even realizing it. It could be one of those situations where people will still call themselves Americans and won't even live in America anymore. They don't even realize it. So this is in your links down in the description box. Thought it might be a good article just to read to get this guy's perspective on how he sees the empire in decline, some historical references. Even a little art treasury stuff from past empire, using them as examples here. So that's something to go check out. I thought it looked interesting. I didn't even know that it was going to have a whole treasure chest talking about things below. Talking about visiting a British museum and all the displays of past empires. British, it's Egyptian, the Greeks. This was a scepter of a priestess in Taranto. That's pretty fancy. I think it's down into this down here at the bottom, Empire of Debt. So this is a visit to the British Museum. It says the calm elements of every empire include its own appreciation for works of extreme beauty and human craftsmanship, along with strict hierarchy. They all expressed a strong connection to the divine. However, they felt it each with their own mythologies and attendant religions to make sense of it all and help cement the rulers' places at the top. So he goes on down. The lessons of history are absolute, nothing less. Nothing lasts. Everything changes, especially who's in charge. So what are our explanations today that keep us all in line? What keeps us from revolt? To what do we bow our daily collective heads in fealty to? The answer is money. What we call money today was a wicked genius invention that popped up right around the same moment in history when humans were working out other keen, life-altering inventions such as clocks and printing presses. A person in debt is a person in control, but they think it was their own decision, hence the Goethe quote above. A nation in debt is a nation in control. The debt trap is especially insidious, and relies on the illusion of free will combined with the full weight of the law. Well, there's a good story for you. And he goes on down here quite a ways still, writing about debt and money, and that'll be a good article to read up in if you wanted to look into that. Use some ammo for you talking to other such people who think we're just going to go on forever. It's going to keep going. We'll ride this debt train to 30 trillion, no problem. It depends. I think a lot of it has to do with those that still believe they're free, when people will finally realize that they're not really, maybe just a little bit free, but not really free. In the bold print here, we now live in a world of, by, and for bankers and other financial elites, where once it was your royal lineage or direct connection to the sun god Ra that assured your place at the top. Today, it's your proximity to the temples of money. This is well said. This is a good article. Definitely go check it out. The End of the Empire in our own translation. This is a good one. Definitely recommend that. Hey, what's going on, Wes? Good morning. Hey, you're not late. You're right on time because you're here. We were just waiting for you. The Korea's getting back together as a ploy to back China, but we'll see. Well, Stan, there's some good, and I haven't thought a lot about it because it did happen kind of quickly and kind of unexpectedly. I don't think anybody expected Korea to end the war and start unification process this at this point in time. But it is interesting. I do have an article pulled up here, I believe, because that is on the top of the radar. Yeah, this is the AP article we have in the description box talking about the visit yesterday, or has it been 2 days ago? Yesterday, North Korea and South Korea leaders getting together. It was some good video of them going back and forth across the border and everything else. And Kim Jong, what are we talking? We're on Kim Jong Un saying that the war is over. That's a pretty lead statement. They're probably going to sign some document of some sort to try to make it official. But the nuclear denuclearization was an issue that was brought up, and there was some commentary I was listening to yesterday about the denuclearization thing, that China was really pushing that as well, because I guess one of the test sites that the North Koreans have is proximal to their northern border, or China's, kind of eastern border out there, but North Korea's north border. And he has destroyed, he was digging into a hillside and it had collapsed and was leaking radiation out, basically out the top, like a volcano's way it was described. And that China was putting a lot of pressure to get that stuff shut down, because they want to get some experts in there and cap it, concrete, fill it in or something, I believe, to prevent that from pretty much irradiating the countryside for miles and miles, depending on the wet wind pattern and whatnot. But could it be a play to back China? I mean, China doesn't want to deal with North Korea, that's for sure. I don't know that China wants a full-fledged economic power of Korea at its border, though, either. If all that industrialization and technology from South Korea moves north to the Yalu and their border there, they may not be comfortable about that either, unless there's some trade implied and whatnot. We'll see. Hey, Tommy Boy 9, what's good morning? How you doing? Tommy Boy, Tommy Boy, if you're buying 2 ounces of gold, you're far ahead of the rest of us. I don't know if any of us around here are at that point. I bought my kind of minimum amount of silver try to keep up with lead and brass and lead otherwise. Yeah, Wes, indentured servitude is the most productive of all slavery, right? 01 Crom, welcome. It's good to see you again. You troll in peace. Good morning. You got that piece out shooting it again today? So again, this is an AP article. Going quite a lot of just goes through some of the history. Trump trying to take credit for it. But there's still a lot of work to be done. I mean, it's not what I would call over. Be nice to get a couple divisions of our army out of there. Maybe just maybe stand those divisions down, send them home, fold them up, and put them away on the standby mode. Hopefully, they don't get redeployed somewhere else. So there's going to be other articles out there. That was the first one I clicked on, but yeah. So the Korean War is over and unification is possible. Not imminent, but it is possible. Interesting. Kron, you're too lazy. You're too lazy to shoot because you're looking at tactical stuff, huh? The internet's the devil, isn't it? You get all the stuff you can look at, but you can't buy. China is afraid of Trump, speculates Wes. Making money, China money go down in value and slow exports to the U.S. if something didn't change. With you talking about the trade and trade restrictions and all that other stuff. Tommy Boy's gardening today. Tomato plants, good stuff. Yeah, I need to do the same in the next week or so. We're just coming out of our last frost timeline, so I'm not really behind for our area, but it'll be good to have a better start. So I also found a local story off of Twitter, but he also writes in one of the local papers. But this is his own WordPress site, talking about electrical cars. Nevada's been really pushing hard the electrical car issue, and obviously with Tesla and everybody coming into state, trying to get it to more technologically updated things. So the state put in a bunch of charging stations on different state highways. Here he talks about the ones that there's out. I mean, literally, there's a charging station that the state built in Beatty. If you look up Beatty, Nevada on the map, It's hard to get a place more remote, but there is some buildings because of tourism. There's some tourist type buildings. It's on the road that you can take to Death Valley if you wanted to go that way. And there's one in Fallon and there's one in Panaca. Panaca is another place in the middle of nowhere. If everybody remembers the bombing from a couple of years ago where the guy brought in two improvised explosives to supposedly settle a disagreement, but my conspiratorial mindset doesn't think that's what happened. But anyway, the state built these charging stations in these locations. Fallon's a fairly decent sized town for Nevada, but there's electric cars have charged themselves 274 times on these charging stations since they were built. It looks like in 2015. I don't know that would be a business is booming type situation over a 3-year period. But basically, he's going through the cost that the states put into this to attract this type of electric car business and what it's really. So the Nevada Independent reported that the usage of 274 times at those state locations saved the equivalent of 395 gallons of gas and dispensed 3,150 kilowatt hours electricity. It was also noted that the usage rate is growing. In the summer of 2015, the press said it would cost $30,000 to build each of those stations. And then they changed their story in a 2017 report. Spokesman for the governor saying that each cost of each station would range from $85,000 to $250,000, but he assured them that none of it came from taxpayer dollars. The office is funding its portion of costs with federal grant money, and the electric utility covers the rest. And he sarcastically points out, we thought federal grant money came from taxpayers and utility costs were passed on to the ratepayers. Right? So he's going about this boondoggle. He's writing about this boondoggle with electric cars and the pickle that Nevada's put itself into, going all in on this boat. Nevada Energy has put in $30,000 in upfront cost abatement program. It also reports Nevada Energy is putting $30,000 for 3 stations. So these are additional stations going to be put up. And Valley Electric is putting out $15,000. Another station opened a month ago in Hawthorne, another out of the way, nowhere place. And that's the thing about it that makes it really hard, because electric cars have such a short range. Nevada is a really challenging state to have one unless you live in Reno or Vegas. There's really no other reason. I guess you could get one in the Carson City area. You know, if you commute to Reno and whatnot, you'd still be able to make it. But nobody's driving 450 miles on one charge on one of these things to go from Reno to Vegas. It's just not happening. That's why they're putting all these charging stations up, trying to make it more electric car friendly if somebody wanted to brave that terrain in a little tiny bitty bread bread box. Basically, they're not even little tin cans. If you wanted to brave driving one of those things, they put these stations out there so you can charge up. So the first 3 electric car charging stations that we talked about earlier, he's doing the math here, were open an average of about 540 days. And according to the state, they are used about once every 2 days. The station in Panaca has been used only 6 times since opening in September, less than once a month. Because nobody drives these little tin cans out in the middle of nowhere with little chance of, especially about winter months, who's going to drive a little electric car through 93. That's 93. It goes up through Panaca in the winter. It doesn't make sense. When the electric car manufacturers come out with a big 4x4 that has some torque, people might buy one, but until then, nobody wants to get stuck out in the middle of nowhere in a little bit of electric car. So doing some further math here, he states, taking the low ball cost per station of $15,000 each, that means a 395 gallons of gas cost saved, $114 per gallon in capital outlay alone. Never mind maintenance and operating costs. The high end of $250,000 per station translates to $1,900 per gallon to save that cost, to save that much gas. Right. Using the current retail power cost of about 12 cents per kilowatt, the stations have given electric car drivers less than $380 worth of power over 2 years. Now there's a bargain. Yeah, he's hitting it pretty hard here in the math of how the stuff didn't make sense for Nevada in particular to fork out some of the stuff. But everybody wanted to be modern and everybody wanted to get these jobs into the state. And that's the cost they had to put into it. They thought to do that. So here's an example. Again, it's funny. So when the Beatty charging station opened, as he says here, Sandoval, the governor, was on hand to demonstrate by charging up a Ford Focus from the Department of Transportation fleet in Las Vegas. Since the car had a range of only 76 miles, it had to be hauled to the ceremony from Las Vegas. Most of the Beatty charging stations take 4 hours to recharge, though a couple can do an 80% charge in half an hour. Again, it doesn't make sense in a place like where they put them. If you put a couple of these around Vegas Metro or Reno Metro areas, like that's where they're going to be used. If you don't have a range of 150 miles plus, you're not going to be traversing Nevada because you can literally go 200 miles without a gas station. So according to a 2017 newspaper account, spokesman for the governor said the office had identified 24 sites along 5 traffic corridors where EV electric vehicle charging stations make sense. And I'm sure I-80 is one of those, and I-15, and then 93 and 95, and I guess Highway 50, the loneliest highway in America, makes sense to them. Well, maybe the 580, I guess Reno to Carson, that 395 route might be the other one. That would make sense. If you wanted to try to make sense of it, that would make sense. As he says here, it depends on what one means by make sense. Yes. So there's that old photo op from 2016. So breaking down the waste put into electric car station here in the Silver State. Don't fall for the same scam. What are you guys talking about here? You guys are just chatting away. You guys ignore me. That's all right. Death Valley sounds like a B-side from an AC/DC song. Where are you guys at here? Nobody news joined us, it doesn't look like. Your Cracker Barrel has charging stations, Tommy Boy? That's pretty surprising. You wouldn't think it'd be such a situation. But again, they've only got a range. I mean, you got to drive into the Cracker Barrel, charge up so you can get home. Because again, their range is not very far. That's why everybody's got to have a hybrid. They got to have a gas electric mix because that electric's only good for so long. I remember a couple of years ago when they first put those things out, they were doing it was one of the TV morning shows, like Good Morning America or something, did a test drive. The guy lived across the bridge from I guess he lived in New Jersey, if that's the way it breaks down. but it was a cold morning, so he had to use the heater, and the heater used so much electricity. He ran out of gas, or I'm sorry, ran out of the. He was trying to run full electric into work, which is only like 25 miles. And because it was cold and he had the heater on, it ran out. The electric ran out, and he had to cut it over to the gas at like 12 miles. It was ridiculous. It's like, yeah, that's practical. That's really helping me, or someone if they wanted to buy one of those things. Wes wants a new Tacoma. Why would you want a Tacoma, Wes? All right, Wes, have a good one. Take it easy. Have a good weekend. Enjoy. Saying you're going to get a horse team and a wagon. Well, that's renewable energy, right? It's a renewable resource. There might be something to that. Your travel time is going to be slowed down drastically, but nobody wants to deal with that. That's the unfortunate part. We all might want to find alternate means, or maybe to slow our lives down, but nobody wants to spend time in traveling. Maybe we just don't need to travel as far. You know what I'm saying? Just take it easy. Get back to the old days of take our time, take it easy, make a couple pit stops on the way there. Digger Outdoors, good morning. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us. I think Wes just popped out, like literally before you said that. Well, Stan, you do need roads with horses if you're especially back east out there. I mean, you got so many trees, you got to build a road through the trees. Hey, Practical Outdoors, good morning. Welcome to the morning chat. Hope you're doing good. And Slicer G, we got all kinds of people popping in here now that we're halfway through. But anybody got any news in their area they want to throw out there to point out? I kind of ran the gamut. Again, I'm out of practice, so I was not totally up to speed this morning. But that Korea thing, we'll see how that develops. That's the big one of the week, I think. Unless you want to count the Kanye West thing. That was pretty big on the social media Twitter side. Kanye burned everybody down with his comments this week. But North Korea, South Korea, unification, all that talk, and then the end of the Korean War, et cetera, fairly significant historically speaking when you look at the end of the Berlin Wall, and then moving over to the Korea is unifying. We're finally getting out of the World War II mindset. Maybe, well, that just maybe should be a word of caution of what's coming up next, as everybody consolidates their position to get ready for the next phase. Hey, Slicer G. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. We try to work hard. I don't know how hard we work, but thank you. Made your own, yeah, trail. You've trailed for years there, Digger. Yeah, out here in the West, you can. It's easy to ride around out here on your own trails, but back in once you get east of Kansas City around here, it's kind of difficult to ride through all the trees and everything. Unless you make a trail of some sort, you don't need a full-on road, obviously. I guess maybe that was Stan's point. You don't need paved roads. I guess that makes sense. I'll take Stan's comment for what he meant, not what I was thinking. Well, Crom, we all know that everybody should get a Jeep, right? So if everybody got Jeeps, everybody would be happy, right? That's the way to go. But sometimes you need a pickup. You need a pickup bed. So if Jeep would just come back and make the Comanche or the CJ we'd be back in business, have a Jeep pickup, and everybody'd be happy. That's all I'm waiting for. My last vehicle purchase, if they ever do it, would be a Jeep pickup, but I don't know. I keep holding out. Kind of been passing over the weather lately. It's been good weather out here. The spring storms seem to have dissipated a little bit. It hasn't been too severe. I think there were a couple of hurricanes back a couple weeks ago back east somewhere, but it's not been nothing like the March we had with all the winter weather hitting month after month. Nothing really locally going on. Hey, Walter Davis, good morning. How you doing? How you been? I know I haven't talked to you in a while. Been in and out of other chats with you, but that's about it. Oh, you guys, I remember what you're talking about there. Yeah, Ford announced this week it's going to cease car production except for the Fusion and focus on trucks and SUVs, right? I mean, who drives a Ford car other than the Mustang anyway? I've long thought that Chevy should just make cars, Ford should just make trucks because they can't do the other very well. Hey, good morning, Billy Bird Outdoors. How are you? You're Walter's at a music fest. All right, camping out. Always a good weekend. Why are you watching the morning chat if you're at a campground, Walter? Come on, man. I like you coming in, but man, go out, cook up those bacon and eggs. Enjoy your cook camping. Remember, folks, any stories are there's links in the description box below if you're looking for reference for a lot of the things we bring up. Yeah, I think the days of the Caprice are long gone there, Stan. Maybe they still drive in Canada, but actually here in Nevada, I think State Highway Patrol uses the what they call the SUV hybrid, the Ford, whatever it's called. Not the Escape. Is it the Escape? Maybe it's the Escape, but it's like a small SUV. They haven't used cars at the Highway Patrol here in Nevada for several years. They phased all of them out except for like undercover stuff, the unmarked stuff. Oh, you didn't start. That's sad. That's unfortunate there, Walter. You go camping, everybody got sick. No fun there. No fun at all. Yeah. So those that didn't catch us in the beginning, the story out of the UK we've been following with the young fellow that was being denied health care through the evils of socialized medicine has passed away. That doesn't sit well with in comparison to the birth of the latest royal baby this week and the contrasting comparison of the two paths that Britain is on is quite telling of what socialism brings. Well, I don't know if that's funny, Walter. Having somebody sick next to you is never fun. I know had several similar experiences at different levels, and it's either you can't sleep because they're making so much noise all night, or it's just he gives you that psychosomatic response where you almost feel sick yourself. Digger Outdoors, are you Canadian as well? Oh, okay, Roger. You and Walter Davis are neighbors. Got it. I couldn't sleep because you were laughing. Nah, I would. Oh, come on, Stan. I would consider Western PA to be quite the trek from Kanadistan. It's funny you see videos and people talk from. I mean, Eastern Canada's just as separated, like from British Columbia, as California is from New York. It's just completely different worlds. It seems like even for you guys, no, it doesn't seem like anybody in British Columbia has a French accent or nothing. Yeah, it's funny, Stan. I was reading the article. This week was the historical event where the in the War of 1812 we invaded Canada, which was held by Britain at the time, of course. Um, and we burned down the town that's now where Toronto was, and that they said that that's what the British used to justify burning down Washington D.C. is that we had burned down. I can't remember the name of the place, what they called it, but it's where Toronto is now. Thought that was interesting. It's like, can't we all just get along? I mean, if Canada would have just fought the British like we asked them to and kicked them out of Canada, we would have been happy. There was that whole issue at the time because obviously the French influence is still pretty strong, well, especially back then. I mean, so it's about a 4 hour drive from you, Digger. Yeah. So, Digger, I don't think I've checked out your channel before. Are you a dig it up guy? Like go out and dig up coins and treasures, metal detecting and such, as I would assume by your name. Yep, it looks like it. Among other things, I'm gonna have to check it out. I haven't. I can't check out all the videos I would like to, unfortunately, but I got you here. Okay. I knew I hadn't seen any of your videos recently, but I am subscribed to you. Too many good people on the YouTube. we we can't just burn down all of Canada, though, Stan. Especially back then, they would have had a hard time. I find it interesting as I look at this tweet here that the Alfie Evans hashtag isn't trending on Twitter, even though it seems like on a Saturday morning, which is generally pretty slow, that it's probably outpacing the Independent Bookstore Day tweet hashtag. When you consider this tweet alone is over 160 retweets already, you would think that that would be trending by now, but Twitter might be suppressing that one a little bit because it's doesn't fit their narrative. Yeah, we were talking about this driving from on the electric car issue earlier. Somebody popped up a map. That is an interesting route, but you can see this tractor trailer route for large load warning doesn't even have a road connecting Reno to Vegas. As an example, it has the 93 coming up to Elko, but it doesn't show the 95. Yeah, you know how it is, Stan. Just a little payback never hurt anybody, right? But we always like to point out that the British respected the Marines and didn't burn down the commandant's house. That was always it was seen as a sign of respect for the two services. Are they monitoring the border that close, Walter? Like if you hike too close, you get caught on camera and intercepted from the U.S. side? Yeah, Digger, Highway 93 there. Yeah, it's a two-lane highway pretty much from there all the way to Elko. And then once you leave Elko up to Idaho, it's two-lane. Yep. It's just US highway. It's funny because we have the Highway 50 which runs across the middle of the state. It's called the loneliest highway. But it may be getting out. I mean, when you get to it's pretty much still a regular highway busy wise until you get to Fallon. And then once you leave Fallon, it gets pretty desolate all the way to the Utah border. But it seems like it's more busy than probably the 93 is nowadays, or even the 95 when you leave Tonopah up to I-80. Hey, good morning, Adventures Guide of the Galaxy. How's it going? What's going on down in your neck of the woods? It's probably a little warm. You're probably in full on summer down there. You going to the beach or what? I haven't seen Florida in the news lately. You keeping all those kids out of your schools or what? So we're keeping all those Canadians out of America, Walter, by guarding that northern border pretty tightly, it sounds like. What we like to call icebacks, keeping the icebacks out of the US. Okay, Digger, was that they used to call a race called the Silver State Classic? Was that a like car race, or are you talking about like a 4x4 off road that paralleled it? Because there is a 4x4 off road race that trails 95 up this side of Nevada that comes up 95 and ends out here by Carson City. Refugees are coming to Canada, Stan? Like American refugees or like Central American refugees? Like that's one thing we haven't talked about was the refugee train finally hit America this last week. The first ones were crossing in, and I just saw the article yesterday that The DHS secretary said they would have to seek asylum in Mexico. They weren't our problem, I guess. Oh, look at that. Yeah, you are having a problem there, Stan, right in your neck of the woods. Is there a London, Canada? So this is an article for you, Stan. More funds needed to address influx of refugee claimants and shelter system. This is out of Toronto, the Canadian Press. This is from 27th, so just yesterday. Yep, yesterday morning. Yeah, that would be Elko to Ely, Digger. Um, if you look back, we had to go back to the map. Ely's right about here, and it would run up to here to Elko. It's about a 100-mile stretch. That's about probably about right. Yeah, it'd been a fun drive. Lots of flat, open valley driving. Put the pedal to the metal. They probably don't do that anymore, I'd imagine. Things like open road racing like that doesn't really get very far in America anymore, I don't think. But yeah, here's Stan. Here's an article they come up with here. Toronto's housing is reaching capacity. They've issued an appeal to the federal and provincial governments in dealing with the growing number of refugee claimants in its shelter system. The number of claimants in the city's shelters has grown from an average of 459 per night in 2016 to more than 2,300 per night. So from 459 to 2,300. You Canadians got a weird way of writing. Who writes 2,300? Who does that? And this is a newspaper. And the article is so short, they didn't want this one to get out very much at all. It's like 4 sentences. That's it. That's a pretty big issue. How are you going to work with that? You can't just work with that. I mean, that's you got to redirect people or build stuff. You're going to put them in tent cities. What are you going to do? That's interesting. Thanks, Stan. That seems to be an issue. Who's leaving in droves, Stan? BC meaning, what does BC? I'm not following what BC means. You mean British Columbia or because? Who's leaving? I can't keep up, Stan. All right, Digger. Link in the comments for that race. You got a link to that race you're talking about? Oh, all the refugees can't stay in BC because there's no housing. All right. The people in British Columbia are like, we're just not going to put up with it. We're just not going to house you. While all the what we would call East Coast liberals, bleeding hearts, try to build more housing to accommodate people for just because they feel sorry for them. Is that the way that's working out? It sounds like, Stan. $2,000 for a shack. Wow. That's pretty precarious there, Stan. It doesn't sound like it's going to go over very well. If anybody wanted to know, ABBA's putting the new album again. Why that's on, how that makes the news, I don't know. I'm surprised that they haven't changed the name and changed the makeup of the group, considering Sweden's refugee situation. They'll probably record it in Arabic. They call, oh yeah, we were talking about that one time. Yeah, you call Vancouver Vancouver. We were talking about that in a couple chats ago about the Asian population of British Columbia and Vancouver, whatnot. Especially when talking about illegal Chinese entry and stuff like that. That was several chats ago when we got off on that topic. Probably back when we were talking about the refugees coming from Central America, and they were talking about the Asian populations in the East Coast or West Coast. And then also they included Canada in that discussion. You were probably in there, Stan. You're probably the one that brought it up. Oh, Stan, so you're saying that everybody on the British Columbia, like native Canadians, are the ones leaving, not the refugees that are coming in or the immigrants that are coming in. Interesting. British Columbia is a pretty hardy place. Like, you got to be pretty tough to live out there. I would think that some of that would be the natives digging their toes in and not moving out. But it's one of those things. You're talking about $2,000 rent prices. I mean, that's one way to keep people out of your area. Just charge exorbitant amounts for rent and leases and stuff. I know I follow Stan, if you know, well, this isn't British Columbia, but there's a good uh, vlog guy out of British Columbia. Carl the Madman does vlogs out of British Columbia up there. It's really great. He's in a small town up there somewhere. He does a daily vlog, and it's pretty good stuff. Just his daily adventures. He lives in a small little town up there, and it's got some great views and whatnot. I don't think he's getting overrun anytime soon, but I can see what you're talking about in Vancouver and whatnot. You should go check him out, Carl the Madman. You could probably find him on my suggested channels on my channel if you went and checked it out. It's a cool channel. What else is Zero Hedge talking about today? We're about ready to wind it up, folks. Now that we've found out about the refugee situation and housing in Canada. It looks like the Danish immigration situation here on the Zero Hedge as well. Yeah, it's pretty cool, Stan. If you check him out, he's got days when on nice days when he can put up his drone. It's pretty cool. He gets some really good footage. But he's just a cool channel to follow, I think. It's one of those things. It's just depends on what you're interested in. Venezuelans. We haven't checked in on Venezuela in a while. Venezuelans assaulted by police outside Socialist Health Ministry. And there was also a story about Colombia shooting Venezuela refugees coming into Colombia. I saw that this past week. Venezuela continues to get worse. There was also a chart of Venezuela's inflation rate, and they're in the thousands of percent of inflation going back several decades. as that situation gets dire, as we've talked about different raiders on convoys and stuff, it's falling apart fairly quickly. Not something you want to get caught up in. All the more reason to be prepared for your own situation. So this is out of SHTF Plan, is the one that wrote the article. Hey, Billy Board, thanks for dropping in. Hey, no doubt. Anytime, man. You don't have to be here live all the time. It's just the time I set aside. Your schedule's not my schedule. I know how that goes. So using some quotes out of MRC TV. It is with a heavy heart that one reports on the inevitable consequence of collectivism, because since collectivism is predicated on state violence and threats of it, the outcomes are always, always bad. There's a good quote for you. So this is from April 20th when this incident occurred. They were protesting due to the lack of medicine and health care in the socialist nation. And according to this, came out of the Latin American Herald Tribune, protesters were shouting genocidas or genocide perpetrators they tried to gain access to the Caracas base of the Venezuelan health ministry. Police assaulted the protesters, some of whom were suffering from different diseases, causing multiple injuries and fueling the fires of even greater resentment over Venezuela's diseased socialist health system. The government does just not have the response capacity in the face of the magnitude of what is happening with the medicine shortage. This is a quote from a protester told the reporter here, Francisco. We will have to go to Miraflores to demand solutions from President Maduro. Enough with all of the deaths. The government has the solution in its hands by activating international cooperation mechanisms. The writer goes on to write their own, going on, basically saying no central plan will offer a long-term solution to this. In fact, it is the very collectivism most Democrats seek that brought this disaster about. Doctors and drug makers who are controlled by government dictates regarding what they can charge and offer will not long offer much. And the silence in the mainstream media and American leftist is noteworthy. Yeah, you don't hear about the Venezuela's riots so much on the news, just like you don't hear about the different secession movements around the world in the evening news either. But it is what it is. Who we got left with us here? We're about ready to wrap it up, folks. Billy Bird's Eastern Kentucky. Thanks for dropping in. Okay, cool. It's good to know where people are at a little bit, get a little bit of frame of reference when you're talking to them. Movie on YouTube Movies, The Arrow, about Canadian socialism. Is that right, Walter Davis? The Avro Arrow. Okay. Stan knows about it. It's good to look into, learn a little bit other than what they do other than hockey. I think most Americans just assume Canadians play hockey all day. Hey, I'm assuming this is Mule coming in as the Green Dragon. What's up, man? How's it going? We're about ready to wrap it up here, Mule, but you probably just getting off work if you, or maybe you didn't work last night, but this would be your off time, I would imagine. Yeah, Billy Bird, we're out here in Nevada. If you're talking to me, and northern Nevada, not that Vegas, Nevada you always hear about. We're in the real part of Nevada, the western, what the West used to be. Just got off, right on. Another good evolution for you, Mule. Everybody safely got home. You just got off. Right on. Yeah, we're just kind of rounding it down. We were talking first off today. Started off, Mule, talking about the Alfie in Britain has passed on after they denied him any type of health care for over a week, pretty much. That has come to an end. But I didn't know if you're up to speed on that, but that was what we started off with and kind of continued off the rails after that. No, but everybody, thanks for coming out, everybody. Hope you have a good weekend. Links below in the description box if you want to check them out. But we will hopefully get back with you Monday. We'll see if we can get back in the swing of things. I still have scheduling issues, but we'll see how it goes moving forward this week. We'll see you elsewhere in the chat sphere, YouTube, Twitter sphere, G+ locations. If we do, we'll say hi. Have a good weekend. Live free.